Okay, Santiago is a little bit farther on. Sharing the screen, opening that one link that we need. It's under AW News. There you are, AI Webinar News. And that's the link that you need. Now you can either click on that link. I'm giving that to you on chat. From Atlanta, hello. Okay, here is the link that you can open either by clicking on that or by typing, because that's a bit.ly link. And welcome to the webinar. So if you're fresh and new to the webinar, I've been running it for close to 3 years, and we are coming to session number 100, which Sharon suggested we should celebrate in some way. So if you have any ideas, very good, tell me. But that is what we do, and today is April 11. We're going to talk about those things, but you can also ask questions about what we did do before. You can click on every link, so it's a record of what we did. And with that, we can start. So what I wanted to share today is 3 things. Number 1 is a new course, which is entitled Chat to Your Data. I'll give you my opinion of this course and what I think of those things, but I will compare it to the previous course. And both are not mine courses, but it is well, you'll see what it is. How do you compare that? And then I'll tell you about all the things that I'm doing, because what I'm doing is teaching people AI and also implementing. And that is what I'm gladly sharing, because I get some feedback from you. All right. So Enrique says the client doesn't have any permission. And that is very, very strange. But Enrique, are we talking about that particular link? Then let me do this. I'm copying this link. You see my screen. Okay. I'm opening an anonymous browser here. Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. There. And clicking. Ah, how do you like that? Well, it says actually that yes, it opens. So it took a little while. So Enrique, it should work. If that doesn't work, here's what you can do. You might have a blockage there on Bitly. So what if I give you the full link? Okay, like that. Here. Let's try that. Try that. If not, we'll think of what to do. But I'm showing you, I mean, that's good if you have that link, because then you can link further on. And that is my usual next step. My usual next step is, let's look at the learning path. I call it the learning path. These are the courses that I survey or briefly look at in our sessions. And by now, it's a great collection. So you see this collection includes up to 100 different courses. There you are, 92. That number is when I bring it into our repository. So 68 means that there is a repository called Elephant Scale Open AI. Just keep that name. And it will be a lab number 68. That's how you can find it really in our repo and run with that. And that's what we will try. That is interesting because I haven't even put it in this one. Let's do it. Let's say talking to your data. I know why I didn't. That's coming to your data. in SQL. Now let's look. Let's take that link. Here we are. Well, that's the link. Copy link if I can. Here. And that is from Jules White. So why don't I copy that and put it there? Well, but now let's go to the course. Enough preambles. Okay. So here you are. That course is published on Coursera. Jules White is a great guy. And what he, I would say, does is popularize the, you can use AI to talk to SQL. You see basic ideas from questions to queries. Can you use AI to generate SQL, given that you are not an expert in SQL? That is the emphasis of this course. And I'll tell you honestly, I didn't listen. I like Jules White, but I just used their coach. Well, coach is what really interests me, because that is a Coursera, one of the best places online to learn. And what I did instead is just clicked on give me the summary. So not why I should learn this, but give me a summary. That works very well. Except I shouldn't click on the questions. Oh yeah, it's a questions. Let's try it. This was a summary, okay? So I'll tell you what it is. It's about how you can learn SQL by being helped with AI, but then you can probably use AI to talk to your data. Well, I thought, why is there such a course? It's because many people will be kind of nervous given that they will plunge directly into the code. Now, as you know, what we do here in this, we plunge into the code. That's what we do all the time. So therefore, what I will show you is the previous course that is published on Andrew Ng here. Published on his site, which is called Deep Learning, and for developers. And besides Andrew Ng, his theory is everybody should become a developer. He says that they ask me, if you ask me, like 10 years ago, should you learn coding? I would tell you, no, don't do it, because there are other things in life. But now, seemingly, he changed his mind. It's happened like a week ago, a month ago, and he says, no, it doesn't hurt. So more and more, it's surprising. Jeff Dean, the famous Jeff Dean, who is an authority, Jeff Dean likes to, he writes his code straight into the zip file because just it's faster that way. That's the kind of Jeff Dean. So he always says the same thing. Every product, download, try, do the coding. That's Jeff Dean talking about. And in particular, you would like to look at jokes about him. You can't refuse. You cannot just ignore that. I will say it this way. Let's look any one of them. Okay, Jeff Dean's PIN is the last 4 digits of pi. And we all know that the pi is infinite. So that is not new. That you guys know. So many fun jokes that you see here, right? Tell me which is your favorite one. But I will venture, really take a risk to tell you something about infinity if we're on that subject. And that is, as you probably know, there is countable infinity and non-countable infinity. Countable is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all of the others can be mapped into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uncountable is, for example, how many dots you have on a straight line. That includes irrational numbers, so it's bigger. But in any case, if you're into it, you can use it as a meditation. So you can think about going into infinity. There are more details that I'm not telling you right now. That's my private thing that I do. Meditation on infinity. Ask me if you want to know. Okay, but let's stop this talk about Jeff Dean and go back to Andrew Ng and mention that his new opinion is the same and that everybody should learn coding. It doesn't hurt. And besides, AI will help you. Just today, I was talking to an old, not so old physically, but a programmer friend of mine, and I was giving him project, and I gave him a project in Python. And you don't even ask, hey, do you know Python? Because ChatGPT knows Python. So as long as you're a programmer, software developer, or a person with brains, you can figure it out. In any case, that was all prefaces. That is where the repo is. I remember the course. The course came from I think it's Microsoft. So it's implemented on Azure in the end. Yeah, it says Azure. But I want to show you in action. When I say that's all ready to run, I really mean it. So here's what I need to do if I want to run it. I open, well, first of all, you would clone the repository. If you want to do something, come here, okay, open that link right here. That's your repository. It's pretty big by now, you see. It's already, well, 69. So it will take some time to clone, but I already cloned, okay? So I clone and then I go to the right lab and I'll show you how to run it because we often refer to it. We say, oh, that's a solved problem. Here it is. Here's the lab. I'll show you today. Now let me see what people are saying. Recording will be available. It's available on the place where the whole thing is advertised, and that is here. So Elephant Scale, that's the training company, and in there you have webinars, okay? You go there, and in the webinars you look at this one on the left. That's about AI and the new things. By the way, I did run the quantum computing. I just stopped it. It was lots of fun. Quantum computing is very enticing, not only because you can run this computer, but because that also takes it to the infinity. But I stopped it. So maybe we'll restore that plus secure coding. And we really should restore that as well, at least for one reason, because I'm writing a book about how to secure your AI, and I'll be talking about this. But back, where you come here, okay, you click here, and now you see all of the recordings. And if our secretary Sharon is good enough, that would be the last. I see she updated it. I see the only one that's missing is April 4 and of course April 11, which doesn't exist as yet. Yes, they are all here. That's the answer to your question. The recordings will be shared. In fact, they're shared automatically. I'm not sure if you get an email. The talk recording will be added to here. Thank you, Greg. Let's see. Where is that? Wow. We get on San Francisco. Nice. Thank you very much, Greg. You're very, very nice. Okay. By the way, Ronjit asks, do you think quantum computing is next big thing after AI? I'll give you my personal opinion. So I came to quantum computing because I read an article about that regular programs don't know how to program quantum computing. And that was an IEEE, the Electrical Engineers Journal. I couldn't believe it. It sounded so fantastic, all that whole idea. So I ran to read a few books. They are right here. They're all right there, behind the cat. Okay. And then I taught a course. And by the end of my teaching the course, I realized that there are today no practical applications. Whatever people say on the web great new progress or great new breakthrough or whatever. When I finally got on the Slack with the people and asked them, give me any practical application, they say, we don't know. We don't even know what it will be. And that was a shock because I'm almost at the end of the course that I was teaching. So now I will be teaching probably again. All right. So my opinion, practically, there are no applications. It's fun, but you need to be there for a long term, like 5, 10 years. That's what IBM says. We're there for a long term, and that's why it works. Okay, I hope that answers your question, or at least I was answering your question. Very good. That was your question. We're back to here. I hope I addressed all questions. And I wanted to show you how you run talking to your data. Well, that's how you would run. Where was it? That was right here, right? And we came to 27. So very good. You clone your repository. I'll start another terminal. Okay, that's a new terminal. We go into repository. And OpenAI Labs. And in that repository, we see all of them. And I think it was 47, was it not? No, it wasn't. Let's check what was it. 27, okay. 27. So once you get into this repository, you see a few things. You see the instruction on how to run it the first time, and you also see instructions on how to run it the next time. So let me open both for you and you will see it. Okay, I'll just open it in an editor. So I'll say open how to run it the first time. Okay, it says you need to create a project directory, and that's the most essential step. Okay, and after you do all of that and install everything, you also need the keys. So the keys go into .env. That is a standard way to do things in Python, and they're hidden. So I hope I have those keys. I hope everything here works. And if it does, then I can open, I went through the steps. Then I can just open the, again, how do you run not the first time, but the next time? That's right here. That's very easy because all you need to do is activate. I'm activating that. And it says you are activated. You're in 27. In my last labs, I am just using my environment name so that it's always the same. But that was the time when we created environment per each individual lab. And then all you do is say Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so let's say Jupyter Notebook paste. Oh, how could that be? Probably old setup, but we probably need to install Jupyter. Okay, let's go back for the second, how to run it the very first time and install the requirements. They should be there. If not, then we would install it separately. Okay, here you are. Well, that tells you what to do when things don't work. And that is a great thing because when things break, that is when you learn. When things just work, you don't even know why it doesn't work. Okay, not yet. Where's the Jupyter? This is installed Jupyter. Since then, I started adding it to the requirements, but back then I wasn't. Okay, When I prepare and take one of those labs for the class, then I run it again and make sure it's all polished. But you're essentially looking at my lab. Okay, ready? Ready. Okay. Now it's Jupyter. Did I say Jupyter Notebook? I should have said Jupyter Lab. That's better. And there are a few labs here, as you can see. Okay, Nicholas, great observation that AI, there will be no after AI. That is, I never thought of that. That's very nice ways to put it. Okay, but back, now let's not get distracted, sorry. The very first lab usually just verifies that you have a connection to AI. So let's see. Putting on our thinking capsule to say, so first we verify that we have installed all the necessary libraries. Then we load the keys. And now we verify that we got them. And no, we didn't get them. That is sad. And my attempt to show it without preparation didn't work. That's not a big deal because we'll go back into the. By the way, you put it into AI and it fixes that for you, but I'm not going to fix it in front of you. Instead, we simply go to GitHub and we look at that over there. So the same demo, but not live, would verify that you have the connection, that you can prepare the prompt, and that you can translate from English to Spanish and French. And that gives you, the teacher, a chance to show off your French and your Spanish. But it also tells me as a teacher that I should save those notebooks with their results, which I'm going to do. I'll write it down. And I will do it. But what I'm really interested in is that if you trust me that it does work, then you go in here. The next lab says just get some CSV data, comma separated value data. So you go there again, you connect to your source of AI, and then you load the data set. In that case, it would work if you have the data right here, and I do. In my case, this is where the data is. I can even look at that data. There you are. And CSV don't automatically show here, but okay, that's the data. I can download it here into raw files. And that's the data. Okay. What's important is we have the data. Okay, we got the data back here. So the next lab is interacting with this CSV. And we do it by loading this data, which is coming from the data folder. And now in that case, we're using LangChain. Now LangChain is the glue. That's the glue that connects multiple different packages. And in this case, I create a pandas agent. Well, that is because CSV and pandas go well together. CSV is comma separated value file and pandas is a package in Python. So you can ask it, well, how many rows? And it will answer. It will say, well, since I'm in Python, then I'm going to use this count and it will count. That is just to whet your appetite because the next one is connecting to the real database. The real database will be talking to you in SQL. So what you will do here, connect to the source of AI, the thinking cap, recover the original data set now again, load it from the same place, but now put it into the database. The database will be a temporary database on the fly, will be called TestDB, and will be a SQL-like database. But what's important is that's the whole point here. You give it an instruction. Now, this is called prompt engineering. An instruction in that case is very detailed. We are all used to talk to ChatGPT, give it hints of what we think. Well, it doesn't always work. Part of good discipline is to tell me what you want, and I will tell you what I want, and that applies to humans, and that applies also to SQL. So that's what we do. One thing I'd like to point out is that do not make answers using prior knowledge. Use only the results of the calculations that you have done, and so on. So lots of instructions. By now, my instruction set goes into between 20 to 30. That's today. So you need to be very detailed, and that's the art of prompt engineering. Then, in addition to generic SQL talk, you also give specific question. In this case, the data that we're dealing with is about COVID, unfortunate people who were hospitalized, and some of them died. And we give examples, we give the results, but what's important is that we obtain them automatically with AI. Therefore, we're connecting to AI, then we're asking this question. It already has the first set of instructions. That is how you talk to your data. And that is the second instruction, your specific question. Let's just read this question. Okay, how many patients were hospitalized during October 2020 in New York? And nationwide, as a total of all states, use the hospitalized increase column. So it's interesting. You talk to a very smart intern, and he or she knows SQL, knows the data basics and advanced, just doesn't know what you want. What you want in this case is hospitalized during 2020. Not only it will give you the answer, it will also say, well, that doesn't look right. I'm surprised. I'm suspicious. Maybe they tweak the data. Anything can happen. But that is the real lab. And I promise I will fix it. Okay, so that means that going to our advanced course, let's make a note on what we're going to do next time. That's coming here. And it will be a week from now, Friday. And it should be 27. Fix the lab and run again. That should be clear. Other than the keys, it should run. The keys, you will have to find out how to get them. If you're very nice and ask nicely, I'll give you the key for a short time. All right. That is what I wanted to show you, that there is a way to check to your data. Moreover, there is an actual lab that shows you how exactly you do that. And that covers that. I'm going to chat before we go on to what I'm doing. I want to see if there's any other comments that you guys left. So Lance says, can we discuss what a database agent is and why it is useful? That's great, Lance. First of all, you are using the right terminology. You call it agent. There is no reason to call it specifically an agent. Component would work, but it's already that, and also shows you're in the know. So why it is useful? Well, if you know SQL, then you don't need it. But the same argument, if you know how to code, you don't need AI, and so on. But practically, it may be very useful because not everybody knows SQL. So first of all, your manager, who maybe doesn't know SQL, give him that interface and ask him and tell him, you can run any question. Secondly, customer service. Customer service, connect them to your database. Well, be very careful about, prompt injection and SQL injection. But connect them to your database and, well, I'll give you a practical example. Before, that's how it was. You know the phone of some knowledgeable person in the department who knows SQL, who also knows your data structure. And you ask him to please give you the report. And instead, you ask ChatGPT, it knows the data structure because you give it the data, and it figures out everything about this data by itself. That's another case where it's useful. So I could continue, but I can only tell you that every friend that I show that to immediately implements it in their company and kind of steals their idea. So once you have that lab, you don't need me, okay? Other than as a friend, and that's I think why it would be useful. I think that reaction says that was good answer. Okay. Thank you. All right, let's continue. What I wanted to show is I have a very specific project I'm working on. The project is to process forms, specifically police forms. And nothing is as easy as it should be. The labs work wonderfully well, but that's the way they work. What I'm working with is extracting data from a form. Let me show you the form, not this one. I prepared it in the download. Okay. That is the form. All right. That seems, well, that's a very classical form processing, but look at that. So that seems to be text, but look at that. I'll tell you what that is, but it is very strange mouse selection, isn't it? Let's look further. There is worse than this. Let's say I'm taking that. Why did it grab that part, right? So I'm here. Obviously, I'm extracting the officer. Officer has a code and a name. So that's the officer code, 02621. And that's the name, J. Gallimore. It's not very secret information. So I'm showing it to you. And then that will be hard to parse. And look at that. This sex and date of birth. Really, they shouldn't be combined. But for some reason, they combine them, probably to save paper. And I had to look at the document and extract its metadata. And it turns out that it is created by Microsoft Word conversion export to PDF. Well, to make matters worse, I show the whole document to ChatGPT. ChatGPT says, give me the whole thing. Okay, so I gave it the whole thing. Now, no, that's too much. You have 394 pages, that's too much. Okay, I cut out, I give him only 2 pages. And he says, yeah, you will have problems with parsing this document. Because of that, because defendant name and address shouldn't be combined. And they are combined. Due date is added, which it shouldn't be, but you can read it. It's very readable. That's defendant name right here. This defendant address right here. You can read it. Computer has a problem. So what do I do? Well, the first thing is I take a couple pages. Yeah, I think it's funny, but I'll show you why I'm showing it to you. So let's get 2 pages. Those 2 pages, that's all, 2 pages, I can give to ChatGPT. It will be confused. I tried it. It will not understand what we understand, that they have combined 3 things to save a piece of paper. Now you talk to the police, there is no way that will be changed. So you are left to your own devices. And this is office and case status and arrest date combined in one cell just to confuse you better, right? But it is real, it works. So ChatGPT has problems. It asks for the whole document, doesn't work. I'm going to Andrew Ng. Andrew Ng has a new theme. Let's look at that. He has Visual AI. Let's go there. Now, if you write to them, they will give you a link. That is the link. I'm not sure of why it works for me. It works as an advertisement without anything. But that gives me a chance to do a POC, proof of concept, on Andrew Ng's platform. Andrew Ng also shows beautiful demos. You can look them up, where he says, this is the shelf of a superstore. Find all the Cheerios brand that maybe has raisins, okay? And that works wonderfully well. Or find all the airplanes that have 2 engines. Also works wonderfully well. He gives you examples. Give me that document. And it gives you that document. And it's complicated structure, but it converts it into something. Well, as every canned software, I cannot do anything with it. I couldn't download. I think that would be a copy paste. It's not perfect, but the problem is my document. My document won't work anywhere. Now, sometimes I see a place where you can upload. Okay, can upload. So let me try to do it. That was the 2-page document. Yeah, wonderful. Let me do it. 2 pages, you get it. So first of all, it entertains you by saying estimated total extraction time is 1 minute 40 seconds. I'll tell you right away, it won't be that. It will be more like 5 minutes. In the end, the magical extraction with we extract complex document layouts. So sounds very nice, but there is a disconnect between the advertisement and the real stuff. No, it doesn't get perfectly well. And then when it is there, it doesn't allow you to download that. But in the end, I'll tell you the result. Not perfect. Doesn't work. So pricing options are good. Okay. 3 cents per page. So if it really worked, you could do wonderful things. And as says, you see that I'm working with exactly the complex document extraction, but it doesn't work. Okay, so what do? What I do is I write back to the project owner and I say, that what I told you, the whole story that I told you, I tell it to them. So even though we have magic AI, but it's not complete answer. That's real life, and real life, it's not exactly like that. Well, they tell me there is no way that we can change the mind of the police. Honestly, the reason I showed this to you is because of that. I wanted to show you how it works. I waited for 5 minutes. It got me the results. They were just not perfect, just as with ChatGPT. But the way I didn't show you what it was with ChatGPT. So at least let's go there. Okay, and here is my work account. It's paid and it's a bit smarter. And here are my 2 pages. Now, of course, it gets that and it says, well, ask your question. Well, convert to CSV, and you do that. It was faster than Andrew Ng, which was a hope for Andrew Ng, at least it's thinking. It was under a minute, so we'll get there. I got it. Here you are. Can download it. Let me download it. So Monterey arrest record. Let's go there. Here it is. Seemingly, yes, but not quite. So you remember that the original had date of birth in and sex in one column. Defendant name, that was good. But later on, it did get confused. So if we go into charges, by now it's confused about the columns. Okay, here you are definitely wrong by now, confused, because that's the Monterey County Jail and that's the Monterey County Jail. So that's not quite right. It should be in one column. Well, in addition, in practical life, you use API. You don't use this wonderful interface. And you remember that when you dropped it into the window of the browser, well, there are many layers that are working very nicely for you, but you would have to do it yourself in the real system. So you would have to convert that to text, and it's not perfect conversion, and therefore it later gets confused. Okay, so I did two things. I showed you how you would try to extract it in ChatGPT. I also showed how you would extract it in Andrew Ng's system. None was perfect. I'm left to resolve the problem, but one thing I can promise, and that's that I probably will have solved it by next Friday. And therefore here I can say how do really extract. Okay, and I will say and is that the next week. Okay, so guys, thank you very, very much. What I'm going to do now is stop sharing and shut myself down and stop my video and ask you for questions. It works very well. I'll give you a minute. So something still didn't work. Maybe, or maybe it did. Greg, quantum computing day, assuming the future where there would be GPU, QPU for some specialized task. Yeah, probably yes, Greg. Exactly. Now I'm silent and asking you wonderful. Why liquid helium? Is that part of cooling down or part of quantum computing? I haven't heard about liquid helium. Are you serious? Like hell? So I wonder if we have any opinion. EUT. Ah, so because you want your computer to be cold, that's why, right? And you want it to be cold because there are errors there, and the hotter it is, the more errors. That's the famous problem. Maybe, but yeah, that's important. Very important not to forget liquid nitrogen also. All right, guys, it was a pleasure. I know that even if we don't have too many questions, but I know you're listening. and sometimes you type suggestions. Now, Greg says, in the future, would the related Scantropic MCP adopted by OpenAI, look at that, and Google? Well, people were actually asking about this. I think, yes. I think, let's start from here, copy and put it into the next thing. Here, okay? And that is what we'll do next. All right, everybody, thank you very much. Have a great week and a great weekend and a great year. See you next time. Thank you.